The wind was brutal. Snowflakes stung her cheeks as she pulled her coat tighter. That's when she saw him, an old man trembling beside a dumpster, wrapped in nothing but a torn hoodie. Without thinking, she unzipped her backpack, took out her last blanket, the only thing keeping her warm on her night shifts, and gently wrapped it around his shoulders. The next morning, she opened her door to flashing cameras. Her street was flooded with reporters, and behind them, someone she never expected. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. It was 2/7 when Emily Carter, 27, stepped out of her night shift at Riverfield General Hospital in rural Oregon. The wind was ruthless. She tugged her hoodie closer, her fingers already numb inside her thin gloves. Emily wasn't rich. She worked 2 jobs to keep her younger brother's community college tuition paid and their late mother's mortgage from falling behind. Still, she never complained. As she trudged down the snowy sidewalk past the row of dim shops and closed diners, she paused. There, curled beside a green dumpster, was an old man. White beard, chapped hands, skin like worn parchment. Her heart twisted. He didn't move. His shoulders shivered violently. There was no coat, just layers of torn clothes and plastic bags tied around his ankles. Emily didn't hesitate. She dug into her bag, fingers brushing the soft blue flannel of the last blanket her mother had ever given her. A handmade one she swore she'd never part with. But this wasn't about sentiment. She knelt beside the man. "Sir," she whispered, laying the warm cloth over him, "you don't have to speak. Just please stay warm." His eyes cracked open, blue, glassy. He tried to speak, but nothing came out, just a small nod. Then she walked away. No selfies, no look at me moment, just quiet steps in the snow. By 6 a.m., she was asleep on the couch in her tiny apartment. At 7:12 a.m., she was woken by her phone buzzing like a chainsaw. "Emily, turn on the TV." Her friend Clara's voice was breathless. "Why?" "Just do it." She rubbed her eyes and grabbed the remote. What she saw nearly made her drop the controller. News anchor, the mysterious woman who gave her only blanket to an elderly homeless man in sub-zero temperatures, may not know it. But the man she helped, he wasn't homeless, and now the world wants to find her. Her heart stopped. The screen cut to security footage. Her in scrubs, wrapping the man up before disappearing into the storm. But it was the next frame that shook her deeper. The man wasn't just a random stranger. His name was Robert Alden, a reclusive billionaire philanthropist, known for disguising himself to observe grassroots kindness. Suddenly her doorbell rang. Emily peered through the window. Reporters, cameramen, microphones. Her quiet life gone in a blink. But this was only the beginning, because Robert Alden hadn't just survived the storm. He had a plan, and Emily was about to be the center of something far bigger than she'd ever imagined. Emily's hands trembled as she opened the door, not because of the cold, but because 6 cameras and strangers were now standing on her snow-dusted porch. "Emily Carter," a woman from Channel 8 News asked, holding a microphone inches from her face. "Do you know who the man was you helped last night?" Emily blinked, overwhelmed. He looked cold. "That's all I knew." A man in a black coat stepped forward. His presence quieted the crowd. "Miss Carter, my name is Graham Wells. I'm Mr. Alden's personal attorney. He'd like to meet you." She stepped back uncertain. "Why?" He pulled out a small card with a golden signature on it. "Because he believes you may be the person he's been searching for." The drive to the private estate was silent. Emily sat in the back seat of a black Lincoln, staring out at the pine trees blanketed in white. Her breath caught when they turned through tall iron gates toward a massive house that looked like it belonged in a movie. Inside it was warm, quiet, elegant, velvet curtains, crackling fire, art that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. And then, there he was. Robert Alden stood, wearing a soft grey sweater and sweatpants, but it was the same man. His piercing eyes met hers, and soft. "You gave up something special last night," he said in a low, gravelly voice. "Why?" Emily looked at the fire, then at him. "Because someone colder than me needed it. That's it. No strings." She shook her head. "I don't want anything from you." He smiled, a weary, weathered smile that said he hadn't trusted many people in a very long time. "That's what makes you different." Over the next hour he told her the truth. For the last 2 years, Alden had been disguising himself as a homeless man in various cities, testing people not to shame them, but to find someone who didn't act out of guilt, image, or gain. "You didn't post it online," he said. "You didn't wait around. You walked away." "I didn't do it for applause." He leaned forward. "That's why I want to give you something. Not money, not a handout, a choice." Emily tilted her head, puzzled. "A choice." He handed her a folder. Inside were documents, legal ones. 10 years ago, I started a foundation for low-income healthcare workers. We've been looking for someone to take over. Someone real." She stared at the papers. "CEO of a multi-million-dollar foundation? I'm a nurse. I don't know business. That's what teams are for. But compassion, leadership, that can't be taught. You've got it." Emily went home in shock. That night, she stared at the ceiling, wondering if it was all real. She hadn't asked for recognition. She just wanted to be warm, to rest. But she also remembered the landlord's warning. Last week, one more late payment and they'd lose the apartment. Her brother's tuition had already bounced once, and now, her phone was flooded with calls from hospitals, companies, and strangers trying to reach her. She didn't know what to say, but as the snow fell outside, Emily knew something else was happening. She was being watched, not by cameras, by people who once ignored her. Now they wanted a piece of her. The next morning, things escalated. A former classmate posted online, "Funny how Emily Carter's suddenly a saint now. We all know she used to cheat on tests and beg for gas money." A neighbor said to a reporter, "She ain't that generous. Ask her how many times she complained about rent." Someone even messaged her brother, "Your sister's just lucky. She's not some hero." The kindness she'd shown was now being twisted into something fake. Public favor started to divide. People who had once never cared about her now either worshipped or hated her. And one person, someone from her past, was about to step back into her life and expose something she thought she buried for good. Emily barely stepped outside anymore. Even a trip to the corner store meant cameras and questions. At first, she tried to smile through it. She wasn't a celebrity, she reminded herself, just someone who gave away a blanket. But public curiosity turned toxic fast. She only did it because she knew who he was. She planned it. "I went to high school with her. She was always playing the victim." And then came the message. It popped up in her inbox late one night. "Funny how fame makes you forget who you used to be." Her hands froze over the keyboard. Only one person ever signed their name like Alec Monroe, the boy she once loved, the one she once saved, and who, in turn, ruined her. 3 years ago, Emily had been working as a med assistant in Portland, finishing her clinicals. Alec had been a first-year resident, smart, charming, magnetic. He'd called her his angel in Scrubs. He also stole her identity, racked up credit card debt in her name, and ghosted her the day after she found out. It took her almost a year to crawl out of that mess, and now, he was back, with a podcast, a platform, and a vendetta. The next day, he went live on social media. "Look, I'm not saying she's bad, I'm just saying I knew her before the world did, and trust me, she knows how to manipulate sympathy, always has." People ate it up. Within hours, Emily was trending again. But for the wrong reasons. She sat in her apartment, staring at the TV as Alec casually spoke about her like she was a case study. Her brother Miles clenched his fists. "Why is he even doing this? You helped someone, you didn't ask for this." "I know," she whispered, "but that doesn't matter now." The next morning, her apartment door had a flyer taped to it. "Scam Saint, Google her name." Emily pulled it down slowly, her heart heavy. She'd never asked for recognition. She didn't want it. But now that it had come, it brought everything she feared: judgment, lies, attention, and worst of all, a spotlight that attracted shadows. By noon, her phone rang. Robert Alden's voice was low. "We need to talk." He picked her up in the same Lincoln, this time without the formality. They sat in a quiet office inside his estate, papers spread across a table. "I did background checks before I offered you anything," he said. "I know everything about Alec, his lies, the credit fraud, the legal charges he settled out of court." Her face burned. "Then why?" "Because I wanted to see how you'd react when the world turned. Not when they clapped, but when they criticized. And," he smiled faintly, "you didn't fold. That's leadership." Still, it wasn't over. That night, someone tried breaking into her apartment. Just a shattered window and scattered mail. But it was enough. Alden moved her to a guest house on his property for protection. The media didn't know, neither did Alec, but Emily was done hiding. She called a friend at Channel 4 News. "I'll do one interview," she said, "but I'm telling my version. Raw, no filters. I don't want sympathy. I want the truth." When it aired, it wasn't glamorous. Emily didn't wear makeup. She wore her scrubs. She didn't cry. She told stories of night shifts, patients who died in her arms, of helping even when no one was watching. The anchor asked, "Why did you give away your last blanket?" She answered, "Because that man mattered. I didn't know he was rich, but even if he wasn't, he mattered." Silence followed, then applause, real, human applause. But Alec wasn't done. He posted screenshots of fake texts, claimed she once begged him to marry her, claimed she was obsessed. Only this time it backfired. A nurse from Alec's past came forward, then another, a legal intern, a barista, all with eerily similar stories: manipulation, gaslighting, debt. Soon the truth wasn't just on Emily's side. It was unstoppable. And just as the world began turning in her favor again, she received a mysterious letter. No name, just 4 words: "We know your secret." She paled, because only 2 people alive knew about that secret, and one of them was buried 6 feet underground. Emily sat on the edge of the guest house bed, the anonymous letter trembling in her hand. "We know your secret." 4 words, simple, but they felt like an earthquake under her ribs. She hadn't thought about that night in years, hadn't let herself, not since she buried the evidence, and promised never to speak of it again. But now someone knew, and they were watching. Later that evening, Robert Alden entered the guest house unannounced. His eyes locked onto hers immediately. "You're pale," he said. "What happened?" She handed him the letter. He read it, then again. "What's this about?" "I need you to trust me," Emily said, voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't tell you everything. Not yet." His expression tightened. "Emily, you're not just a nurse anymore. You're about to become the face of a global foundation. If you're holding something back, it's not about me, it's about her." "Who?" She exhaled, sat back, and finally let the words out. "Her name was Julia, my best friend in high school. She died, and I never told anyone the whole truth." Flashback. Winter 2012. Back then, Emily and Julia were inseparable. 2 scrappy girls in oversized jackets, finding shelter in libraries and church basements. When the world was too loud, Julia had been living with an abusive uncle. After her parents died, Emily, already juggling 2 jobs, tried to protect her. One snowy night, Julia showed up at Emily's trailer, bruised and bleeding. "I can't go back," she said. "He said if I leave again, he'll kill me." Emily made her promise not to return, but the next morning, Julia was gone. A week later they found her in the river. The police ruled it an accident, hypothermia, suicide. But Emily knew better. Julia had left a voicemail. "If anything happens to me, it wasn't my choice, it was him." But the system didn't care. Julia's uncle had money, friends on the force, and Emily was just a broke teenager with a part-time job and no parents to back her up. So she broke into his house, took a flash drive from his office, and mailed it anonymously to the DA's office. Weeks later, Julia's uncle was arrested for an unrelated case. The drive was never traced, but Emily had kept 1 copy hidden, back in the present. Emily looked at Alden. "Only one other person knew what I did, a boy named Carter Lyle. He helped me mail the drive. He moved away a year later. And you think this letter is from someone who wants me to stay silent? Maybe Carter. Maybe someone who's afraid I'll finally speak up now that I have a voice."
Alden's expression darkened. Then maybe it's time you do speak up. 2 days later, Emily stood on stage at the National Caregiver Summit. Her foundation launch was already national news. Reporters packed the room. The lights were bright, the podium polished, but her speech wasn't rehearsed. I was asked to talk about leadership, she began, but I want to talk about silence. Then she told Julia's story. The bruises, the river, the drive. Gasps filled the room. I was a scared girl who thought doing the right thing would cost me everything. But sometimes, silence is the real killer. By the time she stepped down, the room was standing. That night, Carter Lyle messaged her. It's not me, but I know who it is, and you need to be careful. They're not done yet. She stared at her screen. Who? The man who owns Riverpoint Media. He was Julia's uncle's best friend. He's been watching you since your name hit the news, and he wants that foundation badly. Emily's stomach turned, because that man was Alden's biggest corporate rival, and now the kindness that got her here, the truth that gave her purpose, had made her a target, not because of fear. She was far past that now, but because she realized something bone deep. Her life had never been safe, not when she kept quiet, not when she spoke up, but now, she had something powerful on her side. Eyes, ears, and truth. The next morning, she didn't wait for the media. She went straight to Riverpoint Media's Manhattan office building, walked through the marble lobby in boots still crusted with snow. Security tried to stop her. They failed. On the 41st floor she found him, Warren DuPont, gray hair, blue suit, cold smile. He didn't stand when she entered. Miss Carter, to what do I owe this? I know who you are, she said, slamming the flash drive on his desk. And I know what you covered up for Julia's uncle. For years. Warren's smile didn't fade. You're brave, but brave people disappear all the time. She leaned forward. You think I came alone? A door opened behind her. Robert Alden stepped in, followed by a federal agent and 3 news cameras. Later that week, the story exploded. Whistleblower CEO brings down media tycoon tied to 2012 abuse cover-up. Emily didn't hide anymore. She stood at press conferences, spoke about abuse survivors, shared statistics, donated her new CEO salary to safe house programs, became real. But more than that, she made it personal. People say I'm a hero because I gave away a blanket, but I'm not. I was a girl who failed to save her best friend. That blanket, that was me saying not again. Alec Monroe, meanwhile, tried posting one last video about her. It was drowned out in hours. Nobody cared about a man who manipulated nurses, when the nurse he mocked had just brought down a predator. Sponsors pulled out. His license was investigated. The fall was swift, satisfying. Emily didn't need to call him. She just mailed him something. A photograph of Julia, and a note. You could have helped her too. 1 month later, Emily stood outside her new clinic in Portland. Julia's Place, a shelter for abused girls and runaway teens. The opening day was cold. The wind bit hard, but it didn't stop the crowd from gathering. Her brother Miles stood by her side, wrapping a coat around her shoulders. You did it, Em? No, she whispered. We did. A woman approached, early 20s. Thin, eyes down. I don't have anywhere to go, she said. Emily smiled and opened the door. You do now. That night, back at Alden's estate, she received a letter. No stamp, just slid under the door. Inside, 1 sentence. Julia would have been proud. There was no name, but she didn't need one, because some truths didn't need to be shouted, some kindnesses didn't need a camera, and some women, they don't just survive, they rise.